Darkcast Network. The light shines brightest on our indie podcasts.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Syrai from the Freaky as Fuck podcast, and I don't think I have to tell y'all that I am a huge fan and collector of all things spooky and macabre. And if you're like me, then might I recommend checking out Hell Yeah Voodoo Dolls? This incredible online shop has one-of-a-kind handcrafted voodoo dolls, handmade jewelry, and all kinds of Hell Yeah merch, such as hoodies, t-shirts, beanies, and more. If you're looking to get a unique gift for yourself or for your favorite person, be sure to check out Hell Yeah Voodoo Dolls. You can find them at hellyeahvoodoodolls.com, where you can also find some info on the 4,000 square foot haunted Victorian manor that they're renovating. Shop Hell Yeah Voodoo Dolls today for your spooky needs.
We're Malice After Midnight,
a podcast that focuses on true crime.
We want you to feel like you're part of the conversation.
And sometimes we deal with pretty dark subject matter.
But we always manage to have a good time.
She dragged the body into a closet before she bled the body out and cut it into 9 pieces.
9 pieces, okay.
Now, the
Christine's
following...
counting arms and legs. There's 4, 2 arms, 2 legs.
I mean, I'm counting.
The head is a piece.
4, 5, cut the body in half. That's 6, 7. There's 2 more pieces. I'm not sure. Maybe she cut the feet. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 9, and the head, and left the body. So hands, feet, legs, arms, head, body.
Shoulders, knees, and toes. Knees and toes. So check us out. We're Malice After Midnight with Tina, Steve, and Christine.
Hey there! This is my disclaimer. Beyond the Rainbow is a true crime podcast, and it's not suitable for children. It's a true crime show. I talk about murder. This show also might not be suitable for some adults either. Swearing is my second language. I excel at it. Don't say I didn't warn ya. Hey there, Rainbow Warriors. Welcome to Beyond the Rainbow. True Crimes of the LGBTQ+. I'm your host, CJ, and I'm co-founder of Darkcast Network. And we just added more shows. There's 28 of us now. Beyond the Rainbow is a one-woman researched, written, recorded, and edited production. Why, you ask? Because I love you. And should you feel so compelled to return the love, I have a Buy Me a Coffee /Rainbow Crimes account. I am on all the social medias because I'm a social butterfly. Find me on Facebook at Beyond the Rainbow and just about everywhere else as Rainbow Crimes. Stop in and say hi, but make sure you use my name, otherwise I might think you're a scammer. Also, be sure to check out my website at beyondtherainbowpodcast.com. Coming up on October 8th and 9th, I will be at my first ever True Crime Festival. It's called the Pacific Northwest True Crime Festival, and it'll be in Auburn, Washington, which is really close to Seattle. I'll post a link to the festival in my show notes, just in case you might be interested, and I hope you are interested. I would love it if you'd come to the event, and then I could meet you. Again, the dates will be October 8th and 9th. Warriors, guess who had a kitchen remodel? Woo woo! Yep, it was me. It's so nice to have new countertops that aren't a gross yellowish and pink tile squares with brown. My kitchen is now Raiders colors. Lots of grayish and silver with a little black and white tossed in. I still have to stain my cabinets and lay my flooring. But I always say, if you're gonna have a tiny kitchen, at least make it purty. It's been so cold and wet here on the coast of Oregon, my old lady body parts are achy. Maybe like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz, I just need someone to come along and oil me up. That sounded kinda kinky. Anywho, the achy has been keeping me from finishing up the flooring upstairs. I'm just waiting for the warmer weather. Hopefully soon. How are you guys? Drop me a DM on socials soon and let me know how you're doing. I miss hearing from you guys. But please.
Say my name, say my name.
Otherwise, I just get a hi, how are ya? And I think you're gonna ask me to send you money. No joke, I get a lot of those. In fact, a dude from Africa, he started out with, "Hi, how are you? My name's Joseph." And I was friendly back, of course. And then he told me he needed gas money, and I'm all, "Good luck, Joseph," and then I blocked him. And here we are for another episode. I really want to thank you guys so much for being my loyal listeners. You don't know how awesome it is that you come here week after week just to hear me. I appreciate it so much. So, with all that mushy stuff, let's start. Have you ever heard the story of the Winchester Mystery House? If you haven't, it's a good one. I think several of our Darkcast shows have even covered it. I know Autumn's Oddities has, and Sinister Story Hour. There might even be another one. Briefly, the Winchester Mystery House is in San Jose, California. I was lucky enough to go a couple times before I moved out of California. It's a huge mansion that was ever-changing by the mistress, Sarah Winchester. Sarah's husband was William Winchester, and he was like a kingpin over the Winchester rifle dynasty. After he died, Sarah took over the company. She inherited something like over $20 million, and the mansion and his business, the Winchester Rifle Company. While she was in her home, Sarah started to see ghosts of people who were killed by the guns she sold. It was that guilt that drove Sarah into madness. And that's what started the constant renovation of her home. She would have stairs built up to doors that would open, and behind the doors there were often brick walls. She had doors up high that had no stairs. How are you supposed to get up there? For 38 years, Sarah had construction going on in the home. She was trying to trick the ghosts. Now, I bring Sarah Winchester up because this episode is about another heiress. She too inherited millions upon millions of dollars. And like Sarah, this heiress had her own mental illness. But unlike Sarah, who so badly didn't want anyone else to die, the heiress in this episode, she was driven to murder. And that's actually a pun. You'll realize that after I tell you what she did. The American Tobacco Company was taken over by James Duke after his father passed away. And if that last name of Duke sounds familiar, you'd be right in assuming Duke University was named for James Duke. Duke University was originally named Trinity College. But once James Duke contributed a huge amount of money to them, the college changed its name to Duke University to honor him. James got married, and he and his wife had one child, a daughter that they named Doris. And when James passed away at the age of 61 in 1925 of pneumonia, he told his daughter while he was on his deathbed, "Trust no one." The 12-year-old was inheriting the bulk of her father's fortune, while James's wife received only a modest trust fund. Already the mother and daughter did not have a strong bond, but this put even more strain on the mother-daughter relationship. It seemed the mom was jealous at how much her husband loved little Doris. But Doris held on to her father's advice for her entire life. Pretty much. At the age of 14, Doris retained an attorney, and she sued her mother. It would seem that Doris's mother took to selling tangible assets in the house. It was a way for her to make more money than she was gifted. Doris took action and sued her to stop doing that, and Doris won. As well, Doris was given the deed to their home. I'm sure the mother was pissed off about that. As Doris got older, she told her mom she really wanted to go to college, but her mom said no. Honestly, what mother is going to tell their child, "No, you can't go learn"? But instead, Doris's mother insisted they go on a trip to Europe. In London, Doris was presented as a debutante, and she hated every second of it. Doris did not like media and being publicized to the world. She was much more introverted and preferred no thrills, no shiny fanfare, especially now. It was the time of the Great Depression in the United States. I'm not sure why they called it great. There really wasn't anything great about it. People couldn't afford to live. They struggled. Doris, her mother, and all of the other wealthy socialites, they had no struggles during this time because financially, they were set. At the age of 22, Doris married a politician who was 16 years older than her. Are you thinking daddy issues? I sure am. They married, had an extended 2-year honeymoon, and ended up at their last destination of the honeymoon in Hawaii. Doris in particular fell in love with Hawaii. On the island of Oahu, she had an Islamic-style mansion built for her and her husband. They called the home Shangri-La. The rest of that year of 1940 was a tumultuous one for Doris and her new husband. Her husband was an acting U.S. ambassador to Canada, but he decided to give it up and run for senator of New Jersey. The campaigning was hard for Doris, especially when the press were more interested in her being a tobacco heiress than her husband running for Senate. And unknown to her at the time, Doris was pregnant. When she found out, she was delighted. She did have complications throughout her pregnancy, and she ended up giving birth prematurely to a baby girl. The baby would only survive 24 hours. It devastated Doris. The loss also took a huge toll on her relationship with her husband. The couple stuck through their marriage a few more years and they divorced in 1943. After the end of World War II, Doris had some friends over. One of her guests brought a man named Porfirio Rubirosa. Doris was quickly smitten with Porfirio. Only one small problem. Porfirio was married to a French actress. No worries. Doris offered the actress a cool $1 million to divorce Porfirio. And this is back when $1 million was something to gasp over. The actress didn't have to think too hard and long about it. She loved her husband, but she loved money more. She took the money, divorced Porfirio, and said, later, gators. Remember, she was French. Doris and Porfirio were married in a big, grandiose ceremony. Doris seemed very happy and very in love. For a while. You see, Porfirio worked closely with El Jefe, the Dominican Republic dictator Rafael Trujillo. What Doris didn't realize was El Jefe's daughter was Porfirio's first wife. And because the Dominican Republic dictator liked Porfirio, he kept him around, which gave Porfirio ample access to his first wife. On outward appearances, Doris and Porfirio seemed to have the perfect, lovely marriage. But behind closed doors, Doris couldn't keep Porfirio from bumping uglies with El Jefe's daughter. Porfirio wasn't just having sex with his ex-wife either. He took as many lovers as he wanted. Thankfully, Doris made Porfirio sign a prenuptial agreement before they married. Finally, Doris couldn't stand all of her husband's infidelity. A little over a year after their marriage, she divorced his ass on grounds of mental cruelty. Their divorce was bitter, and in spite of the prenup he signed, Porfirio would receive $25,000 a year in alimony from Doris. Again, that might not sound like a lot in today's money, but this was back in the 1940s. $25,000 a year would translate into about $500,000 a year in today's money that he was getting. He started dating again, but he wasn't in a hurry to marry, because it meant that if he married someone, his alimony would end as well. Eventually, Porfirio married Doris's mortal enemy, her heiress rival, Barbara Woolworth Hutton. Yes, this woman was heiress to the drugstore Woolworths. Doris was livid when she saw the news about her ex-husband and her frenemy. But instead of adopting the, she can have my sloppy seconds attitude, Doris was angry, and she drank herself into a frenzy, spewing words like,
"That bitch always wanted everything I have."
Doris would never marry again. She did surround herself with employees, because with employees, they were easy. She'd pay them and they'd have to do what she wanted. It was an ideal relationship. One of her favorite staff, whom she also considered her friend, had been with her for years. He was a gay man named Eduardo Tirella. Eduardo was Doris's personal decorator. He had a keen eye for aesthetics, and he would set up the multiple mansions she owned impeccably. Eduardo was also Doris's confidant. She would tell him about her scandalous dates with men, and the two would carry on about the men in Doris's life and cackle like little old hens in a coop. Doris adored Eduardo. He was the glue that kept her together. In 1966, Doris happened to be living at her manor in Rough Point, Newport, Rhode Island. Eduardo, her ever-faithful companion, was with her, until one day in October of 1966, he broke the news to Doris he would be quitting his job with her. He had an opportunity to move to the West Coast and live with his new boyfriend. Eduardo was in love, and the man he loved was beautiful, everything he ever wanted. Eduardo was sure Doris would be happy for him. But Eduardo leaving was not acceptable to Doris. He was hers. The two had a verbal argument about it, and then they went and climbed into Doris's car to drive to town for supplies. Eduardo was driving and Doris was in the passenger seat, fuming. Eduardo pulled down the driveway and up to the gate, because posh socialites always have a gate at the end of their driveways. Didn't want riffraff coming up to the mansion after all. Eduardo had to get out of the car to go open the gate, so they could leave Doris's property. When Eduardo walked up to the gate to open it, Doris slid over on the seat and she got behind the wheel of the car. And as always, Doris would then drive the car through the gates, and Eduardo would lock the gates after the car had passed through them. Then Doris would slide back over, and Eduardo would drive them to town. It was an act they did a countless number of times over the years. But this time, something went horribly wrong. Or was it something that was played to perfection? When Eduardo got out of the car, he walked up to the gate. Doris slid over, as she always had. She was behind the wheel now, and she took off the brake, put the car in drive, and floored the gas. She crashed into the 15-foot-high gate before Eduardo could open it. And just for a split second, Eduardo was pinned to the gate. The car had such force behind it, the spring on the iron gate sprung open, and several iron bars were pulled out. And what was worse, Eduardo was under the car, being dragged across 2 lanes before the car crashed into a tree. Eduardo died instantly. The scene was reportedly witnessed by Doris's 13-year-old paperboy. He approached her car and he asked if she was okay. She screamed at him, "Get the hell out of here!" Which he did. He went home and he told his dad what had happened. His dad shoved him hard into a wall, and he told him never to utter a single word about what he saw to anyone. And the boy didn't. not until he was a retired Marine and father of 5. His father had explained to him years later he was scared for his son's life. The father thought if Doris Duke was capable of murder, she for sure could take out his son and not think twice about it. More on this a little later. Doris found her way outside the car. She stumbled and she sat on a curb. When help finally arrived, Doris seemed to be in a daze. She was taken to the hospital where she received 30 stitches around her face and head. Her doctor told police Doris was in a state of shock and she couldn't be interviewed for several days. When she was finally questioned, she told the police she slid over to drive the car out of the gate like her and Edward had always done so many times before. But this time it was like the car had a mind of its own. It leaped forward through the gate's threshold and across 2 lanes, crashing into a tree. And here, my friends, is where the white privilege dances its ugly face into the picture more than ever. Police called Eduardo's death an unfortunate accident, and the case was quickly glossed over. There was no alcohol in either Doris or Eduardo's system. It was a simple accident. Eduardo had died from a brain hemorrhage, multiple fractures, and internal bleeding. And wouldn't you know, any evidence past that from the scene of Eduardo's death has long since vanished. Many people were certain Doris murdered Eduardo because he told her he was leaving to live on the West Coast. They believed Doris had a wealthy woman's tantrum and killed him. No one was gonna leave Doris again, not on their own volition. Doris continued on with her life, although I don't imagine it was that happy for her. She ended up making her brother's twins, Patterson and Georgia, her heirs. Doris passed away in October of 1993 in Beverly Hills, California. Her fortune did go to her nephew and niece, but not until they turned 21, which is another crime case all on its own. Not a murder, but a swindler's case. The twins' mother tried to extort all the money from her kids and yada yada, greedy, you know. Here's a strange thing that happened in 2021. Police in Newport, Rhode Island decided to reopen the death of Eduardo, because that's when the former paperboy witness finally came forward, 55 years after the case. The paperboy, who was now 68 years old, explained everything he saw and came upon the day Eduardo died. His version of events lined up with notes that police in 1966 had, and their speculations on what happened, even though no charges were made against Doris. The 2021 conclusion was Doris had purposely rammed Eduardo into the gate, and then drove through the gate, dragging Eduardo under the car to the final resting place when the car crashed into a tree. Doris was a murderer. Rest in power, Eduardo. Our true crime quickie this episode comes to us from Roanoke, Virginia in August of 2015. It was a dance he choreographed in his mind 1,010,000 times. He was ready, only it wasn't a dance he had choreographed. It was an execution of a former co-worker and his replacement. Fester Lee Flanagan. He used the stage name Bryce Williams. He was a television news reporter for a local station in Roanoke, Virginia. I guess he thought,
"This is Bryce Williams reporting."
sounded better than,
"This is Fester Lee Flanagan reporting."
While working at the news station in 2013, Fester complained that he was being bullied by co-workers for being black and gay. He'd only been with the news station for a year, but he didn't mind rocking the boat, and it was always because of discrimination. People weren't treating him right because he was black. People weren't treating him right because he was gay. If these findings were only imagined, then we know for sure it was a glitch in Vester's psyche. After that year of reporting for the local Roanoke news station, Vester would be fired. His anger turned into a tantrum and he had to be escorted from the news station by the police. I can see that turn of events from two sides. The side of an employee. If he were truly being harassed for his color and sexual identity, then hell yeah, I'd be angry too. I can also see it from the side of management. Why does this guy always have something to complain about? Ugh, he's confrontational, difficult to work with. He makes for a hostile work environment. Let's just release him. After Vester left, he would call the station and make threats. The employees at the station were told to call the police if he showed up there. Vester believed he was fired because the station executives hated he was black and gay. But maybe internally it was more than that for Vester. I mean, at 41 years old, Vester wasn't really aging too well. It appeared Vester was fighting some inner demons, and his mental health was suffering. There was a co-worker he had named Adam Ward. Adam was a 27-year-old cameraman. In one of Vester's social media rants, he goes on to say that Adam and he worked together on one story, and then Adam went running to HR and complained about him. Vester lost his job, but before he lost it, the station hired a 24-year-old, pretty, blonde Allison Parker. This enraged Vester. He was sure he had heard Allison make a derogatory racist statement before. Why were they keeping her and letting him go? Vester wrote a 23-page half-manifesto, half-suicide letter. On June 19, 2015, 2 days after a mass shooting at a church in South Carolina, Vester bought himself a handgun. The anger inside of Vester would fester. I'm a poet and I know it. Vester seethed inside. Early morning on August 26, 2015, news reporter Allison Parker, along with her cameraman, Adam Ward, went on location to an outdoor shopping mall called Monetta's Bridgewater Plaza. They were interviewing a local official to try and help draw more tourism into their city. It was about 6:45 a.m., and as the TV camera being held by Adam started to roll, Vester, who had been watching from the shadows, stepped forward. He too was filming this, but he was using his phone. After a few seconds, he withdrew his gun and aimed it at Allison Parker. She had her focus on the woman she was interviewing. A shot rang out, and you can hear Allison scream, followed with a, "Oh my God!" as she ran and then fell. More shots. The camera dropped as Adam, hit with multiple bullets, fell to the ground. The camera he dropped was still on. After a series of gunshot sounds, 8 to be exact, the control room mercifully brought the scene back to the news station, where a stunned reporter was seated at her news desk and said, "Okay, not sure what happened there." 15 shots in total were fired. Reporter Allison Parker and cameraman Adam Ward, they were dead at the scene. The local woman being interviewed was also shot, but with surgery she survived. Vester took off. He stopped somewhere and posted his video to social media. He tweeted,
I filmed the shooting. Go see my Facebook.
Within 2 hours of the murder, Vester, going as Bryce Williams on social media accounts, had his account shut down. Vester had also faxed his 23-page manifesto suicide letter to ABC News and to his local station, the one he had worked for. The manifesto was mostly unintelligible ramblings by a man who appeared to have hit bottom, but he did refer to the Charleston church shootings of 9 black people to be his final straw. He admitted to his anger steadily growing. He said he was a human powder keg just waiting to go boom. He continued to rant about his sexual harassment, racial discrimination, and being bullied at work because he was a gay black man. But the true signs that Vester was cracking and not mentally well was when he started to praise mass shooters. The mass shooters of the 2007 Virginia Tech killing of 32 people, and Columbine shooters who took 13 lives. An hour and a half after sending his manifesto, Vester called the station to make his confession. That was at about 10 a.m. Police put a trace on Vester's phone. He had went to the airport and abandoned his car. He rented another car while he was there. An automated license plate detector on I-66 found the license plate of the car that Vester rented. A state trooper found the car and he began to give chase. The chase only lasted less than 2 miles. Vester ran off the side of the road and crashed into an embankment. Vester had shot himself while he was driving. He was dead. Vester's family in California, they knew he was gay. In spite of them being Jehovah's Witnesses, and Vester being raised Jehovah's Witness, him being gay wasn't an issue for his family. They were also unaware that Vester had mental issues. In their defense, I feel like it had been a while since Vester had seen his family or spent any amount of time with them. 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. have some type of mental illness. There are varying types of mental illness as well as varying degrees of it. How do you know when that worker of yours is going to snap and lose their shit? You can't really know. Unless they come right out and say, I'm fucking pissed and I'm going to kill someone. I think with Vester, no one at his work wanted to get to know him well enough to know his moods or mood swings. The signs might have been there, but Vester was off-putting and uptight. I truly don't think his color or sexual identity had a whole lot to do with the dislike coworkers had for him. It sounded like Vester just came off as a dick, and that's why people didn't like him. Maybe if he would have tried to be more engaging and likable. I truly don't believe him being black or gay would have been a problem for his colleagues. I could be wrong. There's just something, though, that makes me feel it was him and he just kind of rubbed people the wrong way. Until next time, love you, Rainbow Warriors. Remember, it's not a crime to be gay, unless you're a murderer.